Hello, I am Barendipitous with another video for my TTRPG shelf, and here this time I'm going to talk about the Legend of the Five Rings role-playing game, 5th edition. Once again by Fantasy Flight Games. Yeah, Fantasy Flight Games right there. So, um, yeah, I also have my my Legend of the Five Rings dice. So if you saw my video about Star Wars Edge of the Empire, you can see some similar things going on here. This is just one set of dice. I just got this one set of dice this time. But once again, you have good and bad dice, and you kind of you roll symbols and you compare, and things cancel out. And there are a couple other things going on here that are a bit different, but the idea that there is custom dice and you compare symbols across like positive and negative dice is still there. So one of the reasons I got this game is it's beautiful. Cobweb and I, my wife and I, especially Cobweb, I mean, we love things that come from things that are inspired by or come from Japanese culture. Like we love Nintendo games. You know, we are fans of various anime and manga and Studio Ghibli and things like that. And so when we saw there was a role playing game that is it's not set in actual Japan, but it's in a kind of like a it's set in a country called Rokugan, which is a it's basically it's like if Japan were a fantasy country, but it's kind of a thing, right? And so there's a lot in here about like the history and the sort of the various clans and the and like the mystical forces in Rokugan and everything. Playing the game, of course, it'll talk about the dice and everything. But yeah, absolutely gorgeous artwork, definitely. Creating a character. One thing I like, there's also a little bit of so the five rings represent different like elements essentially. You got like the four basic elements: fire, air, water, and earth, as well as void. And so those five rings are sort of empowering various abilities. There are elemental abilities. There's also standard like martial arts and things like that as well. And yeah, you just sort of you choose a school of either martial fighting or or various skills and things like that. You choose your clan, and there's different things to go with various clans. I have run one campaign with this game, and I mean, my friends and I we enjoyed it a lot, and I think it's a really cool world. And this world, the Rokugan and the Legend of the Five Rings has been around for a while. Again, this iteration of the game is the 5th edition of it, and I believe there's also a card game that's been around for a while, and so on and so forth. So Legend of the Five Rings is something that's kind of been around quietly in the background for quite some time. A couple of This is another thing where it's been a few years since I've run this game, so I'd have to review a lot of this. And there are a lot of abilities and and techniques, and you kind of have to look them up. I found myself thumbing through the book a lot to try to figure out what people's abilities were and things like that, like various invocations and whatever, and techniques and all that kind of stuff. I will say though that one cool thing is obviously there's combat in here, but there's different kinds of combat. There's things like normal physical combat where you fight against people, maybe other clans, or maybe monsters or undead or something like that. There are rules for duels as well, where there's this kind of back and forth, where there's more and more stress, more and more pressure as you go along, where kind of like in a lot of shogun in shogun anime or classic samurai showdowns, where it doesn't look like a lot's happening, but the mental game is half the battle essentially, and that there is that in these duels. There's also social, not maybe combat, there's intrigue. There's rules for I guess you could call it social combat kind of a thing. Like there's definitely a sort of a song and dance or a skirmish going on with like navigating the very complex social norms of a like a either a tea ceremony or like interacting with people in court and things like that. These combat like these various like types of combat is really cool, and I appreciate all the various things that can happen um, with all of those, and that stress, um, like stress and honor and reputation are very important in all of this as well. Like reputation and honor is very much a mechanic in this game. Um, but yeah, a very rich and beautiful and colorful world to play around in, and hopefully I get another chance uh, to run it for some friends and stuff. These are sort of like non and like NPCs and various like monsters and how when you create a character you have like a score in each of the five rings essentially. That dictates your various like your abilities to do various incantations and techniques and so forth. Um, but yeah, I will say though, probably the only apart from what I've said before, probably the only real main critique I would have for this game is the fact that uh, I think I think I think most of the people who were involved in writing this were not originally from like Asian cultures. And so they definitely did a lot of research. Like there's, they like many games with rich lore worth their salt. They have like, things you can look up to sort of educate yourself about the various about the cultures that inspired this thing. But I am of course aware that like Orientalism can be a bit of a problem, or like treating certain cultures as like exotic or like mystical or mysterious or something like that, like some kind of mystique to it, can be a bit of a problem sometimes, um, uh, or maybe all the time. I'm not 100% versed on all of that, I will admit, but um, so there is that to consider. I probably um, so that is definitely something I try to be careful about because I'm definitely about as wide as wide as they come, honestly. But I but I so I try so I basically want to try to be careful to not like appropriate things, but and maybe that's what this game does. I'm not sure. I haven't like I never really considered any of these issues until after I had purchased the game. Um, but it is clear to me that the people who made this game have done a good amount of research. Like I don't like obviously I can't really speak to this, but this doesn't feel like I don't see any amount of like ridicule or over stereotyping here, but that's just from my own perspective. I wouldn't really know 100%. And also, there is a little bit of separation with the fact that this is a unique like fantasy realm. Like this isn't straight. This isn't exactly Japan, although it is very strong. It's it's very strongly inspired by that, and it has kind of like its own like history inspired by it, and its own um, like social climate inspired by feudal Japan. So, but yeah, a beautiful game, like beautiful artwork, beautiful book. A very enjoyable game that again I've run once and I like it, even though there's a lot going on with the various combat and social rules and things like that. If nothing else, there's definitely some ideas in like the social combat or the duels that you could or like stress and honor and reputation that you could take from this game. So, but yeah, that's this. I will say that at the end of the day, I am grateful to have this and kind of see what they um, there's lots of really cool ideas in here, and I'm not gonna lie, the five rings thing with it makes me think of obviously Avatar: The Last Airbender. That's like the closest thing I can sort of relate it to, and I'm a huge fan of that show. So and that show also seemed to treat treat very respectfully the Asian culture influences that it wore on its sleeve. So anyway, I didn't really want to go too deep into like any of those kinds of issues. I just wanted to at least acknowledge them, um, while also kind of appreciating the work that went into this, the research and the work that went into making Legend of the Five Rings Fifth Edition. So, um, but yeah. Oh, I also will mention that my wife and I and some of my friends, we were able to be involved in like some of the alpha testing of this. Um, it was like this was like years ago, and like I don't think I'm in the credits because like the alpha testing was so long ago and stuff like that. Um, but that was fun to do. It was fun to sort of like be involved in that process a long time ago, and but yeah, cool. Well, anyway, there you go. Legend of the Five Rings role playing game, fifth edition by Fantasy Flight Games. I believe this is just this one and the Star Wars one are the only Fantasy Flight game role playing games that I have. Um, I have my eye on a couple other Fantasy Flight role playing game products, and my wife and I definitely do have a lot of Fantasy Flight board games as well. So definitely make videos about those in the future. So anyway, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, all the best.